Welcome to George Mason University's Studio A. My name is Rick Davis, and today our guest is filmmaker and festival director Jon Gann. Please welcome Jon. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor.
What brings you to the film business? How did you get into it in the first place?
I owned a graphic design firm for many years, and I think at like the 10-year mark, I was kind of frustrated that I would do things that I thought were fantastic. Yeah. The clients thought were, yeah. And then stuff that I cranked out in 30 minutes that they thought was, just amazing. I'm like, but it was a piece of junk. And it was at the beginning of the digital filmmaking revolution. I'm like, I think I'm going to go to film school. Sounds like something interesting, and I need a break. And because when you project it and it's 20 feet tall, you can see how brilliant my genius is. And so I go to film school and I make two pieces. One is like an editing exercise, my piece of junk, and one is my opus. And of course, I screen both, and everyone loves the piece of junk. And the opus is nice, but that's about it.
So you had the same experience in
film,
and
yeah. That's when I realized, I think that for me, talent, if you don't think about your talent, you let it just happen, great things happen. And if you overthink a project, it just falls apart.
Where did you go to film school?
New York Film Academy.
Oh, great. And then was your undergraduate degree relevant to
no,
anything?
No. I guess so. I have a degree in business administration and a minor in theater. But yeah, I mean, there's parts of filmmaking that, yes, I do need a business sense. And the theater thing kind of helped out occasionally. But
do you have a source of inspiration or a mentor or maybe even a piece of work that inspired you in your film work?
I'm inspired by so many different filmmakers. Obviously, the classic filmmakers, Scorsese and Billy Wilder and Steven Spielberg. I think they're fantastic. But the truth is, I watch so many films now as a festival director. I'm constantly inspired by some of the films I see now. And as brilliant as many of them are, some of them I find very depressing to watch because I'm like, wow, they're really great. I would never be that great of a director. But I think inspiration from most of the filmmakers I meet.
We're going to talk a little bit later about your work as a festival director. In your own work, do you have a favorite child of your artistic body of work?
Yes and no. Obviously every piece I do is kind of like my kid, and you gotta love them all. I mean, some I like more than others. I think one of my first films I did a film called Cyber Slut, which was a very personal piece about finding sex on the internet, and it was crafted specifically to play gay and lesbian film festivals. Miraculously, it won straight festivals, and it played everywhere. I think it played a total of like 64 festivals around the world, and at the time it was like the most played gay short film ever, and it was huge. It was a huge accomplishment for me, and it was a script that had sat on my desk for about 2 years because I was like, I could never make this because people are going to think it's me. It's it's very personal and it's very out there, but then I just one day I'm like, yeah, I need a project. Yeah, we'll pull this one out and do it, and it turned out to be beautiful, and it really worked for me.
And you've also made some sort of more commercial projects, industrial projects. And
yeah, I've obviously done a lot of commercial projects because they finance the fun stuff you can do. And I've tried to pick projects or try to get projects and convince clients that they need to do things that are much more creative than talking head in front of a camera and more special effects. We do a lot of stuff on green screen with stuff floating around, and that makes a big difference.
So it sounds like your background, actually having the graphic design firm, is paying off in running your current business.
I think that filmmaking is, well, besides being storytelling, it's a visual storytelling, and either you have the ability to create that picture or you don't.
Great.
So a lot of it's the same.
Well, let's see if we have some questions from our studio audience. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nina. Could you tell us about your first experience working on a film?
The first experience I had on film was actually probably my first films in school. So I guess it would be this editing exercise in which we were supposed to do a piece. You had to pick a piece of music and create a film around the piece of music, but it wasn't a music video. It was the music is part of your theme or your mood. And we had a weekend, and I had like a Saturday to shoot it, and I had I knew I wanted to use Pez dispensers. That's about all I knew, and I figured I'm just gonna wing it. What the hell? And I showed up, and I woke up that morning, and it was like this freak snowstorm in March in New York, and everything was covered in snow, and New York in the snow was just gorgeous. And I called everyone I knew. I'm like, you meet me at the park in 20 minutes. And so everyone got there, and I just shot this thing really fast. I had no idea what I was really doing. We shot really quickly, and it came together beautifully. It was just people being frustrated about filling Pez dispensers in the snow.
I have to ask you one question about
Yeah.
about your answer there. How do you just sort of know that you have to make a film about Pez dispensers? Where does where does that inspiration come from?
Because at the time I had this huge collection, like 800 Pez dispensers. It was one of these crazy obsessions I had at the time.
The word obsession had occurred to me just
Yes,
as you said.
yeah.
Said it, yes.
I don't know. I thought that would be funny, something with Pez. I don't know.
Great.
I was in film school. You're supposed to do weird stuff like that. Isn't that the whole point?
I think we have another question from our students. Yes.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and I was wondering if you feel there are certain advantages being based in DC versus LA or New York.
Yeah, I do. DC, I think, I know it is. It's the third largest film economy in the country. We have a huge film and television industry here. We're number one for documentary. We're number one for gaming. We're obviously number one for news. We have a nice, vibrant, and growing independent film scene. And of course, we have a lot of big features that come through town to shoot because you only shoot the capital at the capital. And it's a nice group, and I think it's people who are equally talented, if not more so, than people in New York and LA. There are some advantages, obviously, being there. You're closer to access for feature films. But if you want to do other types of projects, I think DC is a really great town to do it in. And because it's small enough, you can really kind of rise to the top pretty quickly. So.
And is that true in, obviously you mentioned, documentaries and things like that. It's not so much true in narrative films, in sort of big studio films, but
Well,
more
big
so
studio
in-
films, right, obviously.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of really good narrative pieces being done locally. The tools are out there.
Originating here or being
originating
parts
here.
of which are shot
No,
here?
originating
Yeah.
here. I know quite a few independent directors who have done some feature films in town. And the talent is here, the crews are here, so it can be done.
And then, of course, part of what makes Washington what they say a recession-proof economy is the federal government, which is also a big
Right.
film producer, actually,
Yes, huge amounts of film are being shot by the government.
for training and
For training and consumption. We produce a lot of film that's shown overseas that we won't ever see in this country.
I'd like to talk now about your work as the director of the DC Shorts Festival, which is has established quite a reputation for itself as a favorite destination for filmmakers and for audiences. Tell us how that got started and what your role is in it.
For that film I had talked about, Cyberslut, I took a year off and I literally traveled around the world with the film. And I was really disheartened at how film festivals were set up. The most film festivals are about parties, and they're about money, and then sometimes they're about films, and at the bottom of the list are the filmmakers. And I remember showing up to a festival in France, and I was running late. I got off a plane, I got in a cab, and I get to the theater just as they're about to announce my film, and I run up on stage, and the guy goes, "Oh, this is Jon Gann." And that was it. And I'm like, what, no questions, nothing? I just got off a plane. They're like, no, have a martini. I'm like, I don't want a martini, I want to meet filmmakers. That's the whole point of this thing, right? Why am I spending 20 grand to fly around the world? And I went to one festival called the Ashland Independent Film Festival. It was the first year for them. It was in Ashland, Oregon, a town that's known for their Shakespeare Festival.
Yes, the world's largest Shakespeare festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
And a really cute little mountain town, and it was their first year, and they didn't know what they were doing, but they had heart. And if you could get to Ashland, they housed you and they fed you. They made sure you saw every film. And I met filmmakers that weekend that I still talk to weekly. It was just and that was 6 years ago. It was an incredible experience. I really loved it. So I came back to Washington, and I was like, we don't really have a showcase for short film in Washington. We have lots of festivals. In fact, this year in DC, there'll be almost 70 film festivals, plus another 120 different types of screenings. But we have nothing that concentrates on short film. So I called a friend of mine, and I said, I'm starting a film festival, so you're helping. And he's like, okay. So we did. And the first year, I think we had 70 submissions, and the two of us sat down over a weekend, and we watched all of them on the couch and picked 30 and said, this is it.
How did you raise the money, if money needed to be raised, to start that
I wrote a big
first
check.
initial venture?
I wrote a big check.
Okay.
It was a huge gamble. I'm thinking, no one's going to give me money for this, and how much could this possibly cost? And I started wheeling and dealing, and getting free this and free that, but it broke even. I actually made like $300. So to me, I was like, oh my God, we made money. So.
And what was your venue?
The first year was a place called Flashpoint. It's a mixed-use arts center downtown that I actually live on top of, a whole other story. But it was perfect. It was small. I mean, it only held like 120, 130 people. But there was a line out the door. and we sold out every show, and I realized I think we hit something. The second year we expanded to a bigger theater, obviously, and it's just grown. This is our 6th year, and I was telling you before that we're only, the first month of submissions, we're already more than double the amount of submissions
That's
we had at this
fantastic.
point last year.
And
So
what
I'm
are you
actually kinda
expecting
scared.
for a total number of submissions?
If it goes at the rate it is, we'll probably have between 1,100, 1,200 submissions,
That's
which
remarkable.
is huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have some clips. No, not clips. We have 2 entire films,
Yes, very, very short films.
which we are going to show from a previous last year's maybe.
From the 2008
From
festival.
the 2008 DC Shorts Festival, and the first one is called "The Inquisitive
Yes.
Snail."
Inquisitive Snail.
Can you tell us a little bit? Can you make an introduction that's shorter than the film itself?
It's just a really cute little piece that's stop motion animation. It just everyone who watched it was like, "Aw." So I was like, okay, I guess we're taking it.
Okay,
So.
all right. Let's watch "The Inquisitive Snail."
Luke saw an ad for inquisitive snails in the newspaper. He thought for a moment and decided to buy one. When the inquisitive snail arrived, Luke sent him into town to spy on all his neighbors. The inquisitive snail saw Mr. Arnold, the butcher, drop a steak on the floor, but sell it without skipping a beat. And Mrs. Mitchell ran over her daughter's cat, but told the child it had run away. With each secret that he put into his shell, the snail grew bigger and bigger. And when the inquisitive snail returned home, Luke was delighted to see how big it had become. This, of course, was because Luke knew that other people's secrets are absolutely delicious.
I think that's a remarkable piece of storytelling in
Yes.
such a short time. I mean, how do you get an entire story arc with complications and a resolution in 2 minutes?
Yeah, that's why I love short film. My feeling is, if, as a filmmaker, if you can tell a story in less than 10 minutes, a really good story, then you know what you're doing. There are plenty of feature films out there that are 90, 100 minutes long that really should be 10 minutes. You know.
Very
So,
good
and if you
point.
can tell a really succinct story, you have the skills to become you're a storyteller, and that's what makes you a filmmaker.
We have another piece to show which is quite different, called "Through the Lens."
Yeah.
And it has not so much as a story, but kind of an idea at the heart of it.
Yeah, and I just thought it was so well done. It almost seemed like a commercial to me, and I was like, oh, okay. And at a minute, how could we not play it?
Let's play it, "Through the Lens."
But he'll be back in a minute, okay?
It looks like we have about another hour of light. Let's make this fun like work here so we keep the distance between the two.
Hey, buddy. It's my turn.
So I guess the idea there is it makes you want to run out and make a movie.
It does. I mean, I get inspired every time I watch it, and I think that for a lot of you guys, it kind of encapsulates what's exciting about it and kind of the dream of what filmmaking actually is.
And it strikes me that it's very well made. I mean, the production
it's
values on that,
gorgeous.
you know, the quality of the imagery and obviously the location is
Right.
great and all of that. 1,200 films coming to you,
Yes.
albeit short ones.
Yes.
How do you organize a selection process, or how do you?
I don't sleep for 3 months. No. This is, I think, one of the things that makes us really unique. We have a selection committee, which we're still bringing people in right now. I think we have about 140 people signed up for our selection committee. We break people down into teams of 3, and then each team is committed to watching between 30 and 40 films. They watch the films together, and they're allowed to discuss, but not really discuss opinions. And then they go home, or they can take out their laptop. We've developed this really interesting piece of software that's online in which they can score based on, I think we have 14 different questions. They can leave a comment, and then they can actually rank the films that they've just seen in order, like their favorite to their least favorite. We then take that data, we skew it as we need to, depending on, some teams rank things very high, some teams rank things very low. And then we take the top about 200-300 films. They go to a second committee, which is basically judges from previous years and good friends of mine, and we sit around for literally 2 weeks every night and watch the top 300 films and thumbs up, thumbs down, and how does it fit? And because a lot of putting a festival together is really, you might have a great film, but we might have 6 films that are just like it or the same subject matter, but how does this one play with that one more than anything else?
That's a fantastically well-organized process.
It is, but the crown to the whole thing, the thing that I think is really different is, because the system is online, we then allow, after we make decisions, filmmakers to log in to see their scores.
Oh, wow.
So we're one of the very few
I was going to say,
festivals.
that sounds very rare.
Yeah, it is. I can think of 3 others that I know.
Everybody
give
wants
the
feedback.
Scores. Right, and here they can actually see this, give them all their scores, all the comments that were made, and the ability to then, write in and say, you're the devil and I hate you, or, thank you for being honest and I really understand where you're going with this.
And do they get to see the numerical rating as well?
Yes, they see a total score for each of the questions, and they get to see all the comments that are left by the judges.
That sounds like a real service to the field, actually.
It's great. Well, my feeling is, if you're paying money to submit to a festival, and submission fees are part of it's part of the game you have to play, you might as well get something for it. And so, if it's worth paying $40 to submit your film, if you're going to get some honest feedback from 3, 6, 9 people.
Is there at the top of the pyramid where the decisions actually get made, is there a curatorial vision there that's responsible, you or a small group that actually sort of determines a DC Shorts aesthetic?
Yes, although it used to be me, but I'm relying less on that now. The beautiful thing about having 140 people judge is these are not necessarily film professionals. Some of them are, most of them are just audience members. So if they like a film, then I know that the audience, in the end, is going to like the film. I mean, I've already got a built-in barometer. So to me, it makes perfect sense, as opposed to having industry people going, no, I don't like this film for whatever reason, and the storyline wasn't right, or there were sound issues. Audience members might say, I can live with that sound issue because the story was so compelling. As far as putting it together at the end, that's the tricky part, and I usually lock myself in a room for a day and put cards out and start figuring out how they all fit together and go, well, I've got 3 Holocaust films, and one's 2 minutes, and one's 7 minutes, and one's 22 minutes, and the 22-minute one is out because I can fit more stuff in. The 2 minutes is too short to get a story, and so I'll go 7.
What is a screening block that an audience member buys a ticket for? How many films, or how long?
We do a 2-hour block, about an hour and 50 minutes, 2 hours. It ranges anywhere between 8 and 12 films. It depends on how many films we can fit in that block. But we try to do, in a block, it's like a poo-poo platter. There's at least one drama, there's a comedy, there's at least one doc, one animated, at least one foreign film, one local film, if not more, and then we fill in the rest with stuff that works together. And that's the key, is making it work together. You can't just put 2 depressing films together. You have to learn.
So there's a structure, there's an arc to the
There's definitely an arc
block.
to it, yeah.
Very interesting.
So.
Well, you're probably uniquely qualified to answer this next question
Sure.
because of the volume of films that you've seen over the last many years. Overall, if you can generalize, in terms of the craft and the talent and the originality in the independent and short film medium, where's it headed? Up, down, indifferent, anything standing out?
I think it's getting better. I think the talent pool is finding its way towards the top. I think that advances in technology have allowed more people to have more control over what they're doing. It's not that your guy shoots and this one edits and then you're left with the result. You can get behind the camera for the most part. You can help with the editing process. You can even edit yourself if you want to. So there's a lot more control as a filmmaker, and I think that a lot. And because of the economy, and I think that the way festivals are being structured, I think better stuff is being sent to festival. I also think that with the advent of YouTube and Vimeo and a bunch of these online outlets, that people who are creating stuff that isn't necessarily festival worthy have an outlet for it. So
there's
the
almost
better
a-
stuff
yeah.
is getting to festivals.
That's a fantastic point, that YouTube is absorbing and actually providing an authentic outlet for
Yes.
things that might not be ready
Appropriate.
for the festival circuit. That's I actually hadn't ever thought of that before, but that's a great great insight. Tell us about another aspect of your work, the DC Film Alliance.
Sure. Well, after writing checks for the festival for a few years, and at the same time I started a group called the DC Film Salon, which was a monthly meeting of local filmmakers just to talk about what they're working on. And you need a sound guy? Well, she's a sound person. The two of you get together.
And those were basically just meetings.
They were just, just
get-togethers.
Exactly. My accountant turned to me and said, "You can't pay for this anymore. You're not Bill Gates." So I'm like, okay. So I created this nonprofit group to kind of absorb that, and I also realized that although DC is this large film town, it's incredibly fragmented. We have lots of organizations, and no one really talks to one another. So the first thing we did was create this master calendar. So we have a calendar at dcfilm.org that has every film event in town, whether it's a class or a casting or a special screening or a festival entry. It's all in one place. You can go just to a single source to get this information. And that's helped a lot to just get other organizations to start talking to one another.
It kind of follows your theme of serving the industry, serving the field, and its members. Is that a member-supported organization, the DC Film Alliance?
No, right now it's being supported mostly from the profits of the festival.
Oh, terrific.
So
there's a tie-in.
Yes, the Alliance sponsors the festival. It presents the festival, I guess. And we're looking at new ways for the Alliance to do more work. Last year we did a survey to realize the economic impact of the film industry in the region, and hopefully we'll have those results for a state of the film industry in April.
Terrific.
And then we're working on some new projects.
Will you post those on your website? So
Yes,
that we
of
can
course,
all
they'll be on the
get
website.
a look at that. Great.
Yes.
I know that our students have some more questions to ask. So yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Michael, and I was wondering if there was any advice you would give for an aspiring filmmaker.
Whoa, there's lots of advice to give. Follow your gut. I can't say that's necessarily your heart or your brain, but follow your gut. You know deep down what you can and cannot do. You can do anything you want. You can run a marathon tomorrow if you really had to. You might not be necessarily great at it, but you could do it. You learn what you are good at. Continue to do that and let everything else fall by the wayside. The beautiful thing about filmmaking is it is a community art. You need you can't just do it alone. You need other people. So, I realize I am not a good camera person. I bring on great camera people. I'm a good director. I'm not a good sound person. I bring on great sound people. So surround yourself with people who are great, and that makes you look fantastic.
Yeah, great advice. Another question from the audience? Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Robert, and I was wondering, in your opinion, what are some common mistakes that people make with submitting films to festivals?
The number one is they don't read the rules. I'm serious about this. Every festival is supposed to post their rules. And, there's a lot of legalese in there, which I know is boring, but in the legalese is a lot of information about how that festival is run and what they're looking for. We ask in our rules that when you send a screener, just to send the disc. We want nothing else. You don't want a press kit. We don't want anything else, because the truth is we take it out of whatever package you give us, we put it into a blank envelope, and it goes into this anonymous drawer. It's identified by a number, and that's it. Everything else goes in the trash can. And I've seen some gorgeous press packets come through that cost $15 a pop, and I hate to throw it away, but I can't store 1,200 press packages. If you get in, we'll ask you for a press package. Following the rules is really a big part of it.
Speaking of which, you have a new venture called Real Plan, which, from the little I've been able to look at your website and our conversation earlier, seems that it's oriented toward helping filmmakers discover how to break through that maze of legalese. Can you tell us a little bit about that operation?
It's a new consulting firm that's working kind of both sides of the fence, but with filmmakers it's working on evaluating your film and figuring out if it's festival worthy or not. And then if it is, or if it isn't, what can you do to fix it? Or maybe it can't be fixed. And there are plenty of films that can't be fixed, or just are in the wrong time. 2008 was the year, evidently, of the depressing war film. We got it was war, disability, immigration, death, and there's another one in there. But it seemed like every other film was
so all the hot button issues
right,
come out.
Right.
Yeah.
So after a while, you can only take so many of these films. So this year, people were saying, well, I've got this war film. I'm like, well, it's not for 2009, it's for 2010. Hold off for a year. This is going to be the year everyone wants a program happy. In 2010, they're going to need some diversity. So we're working with filmmakers to kind of figure out how they fit in the circuit, and then to do research. I think that's the number one, other than not reading rules.
Yeah.
The things that independent filmmakers don't do is they don't do research. There are thousands of film festivals, and there is a festival for your film, but you have to figure it out who it is. It's not Sundance, you know. It's nice to send them the application, you get your $35 rejection letter. Everyone has one, and it's important to have. But there is a festival for your film, and you just have to do the research to do it, and we can help you figure out how to do that research. And then the other thing we do is we can help with access. We will call some of these festival directors, of which I know hundreds, that and say, listen, I'm not saying that you have to take the film, but maybe you really need to watch the film. Because a lot of festivals, unfortunately, judge films by watching 3 or 4 minutes of it, and that's it.
And in your case, that's all right, right?
Well, in a really short film, yeah. But last year we showed a film that I thought was brilliant. In fact, every time I watch it, I hate it more because it's so brilliantly directed. I know I will never be that great. And it's fantastic, and audiences love it. And it's rejected everywhere. And I think it's because judges are watching 3 minutes in which nothing really happens. And I'm like, you have to watch all 8 minutes. Because when you get to that double whammy ending, you'll be like, whoa, how did that happen?
Yeah. Is there one thing for you that stands out from a DC Shorts perspective or your own personal aesthetic? One thing that sort of links the great films? Is there a characteristic that they have?
It's all about story. It's
Story.
so all about story. You can have a film that has technical issues, but as long as that story is solid and you get people involved and they care about it, they'll watch anything.
Terrific. Well, this has been an enlightening conversation,
Thank you.
and I want to just take a moment to thank you for your service to the DC film industry.
Well, thank you very
because
much.
it's not often that you see an artist and a producer who's thinking about his colleagues as comprehensively as you are. So thank you very much for being
Thank
with
you
us
very
on
much for
Studio
having
A.
me.
This is George Mason University, Studio A. I'm Rick Davis, and thanks for watching.